I always fought having a schedule. Like, I fought it deeply because in my mind, having a schedule where you did the same thing every day really took away from the creativity. It took me a long time to realize that that's total BS. The truth is, if you wanna be more productive, the best thing you can do is set aside a certain amount of time every day where you start at the same time and you end at the same time. You could always extend it longer, but the goal is really the start time. That's really the important part. Make the start time the same every day so that you get into a habit of, at the very least, sitting down to work, to be creative, rather than waiting for the right time where you feel like now you can start. See, I used to take part in, doing smoking a lot of weed. It was something I did a lot. And I always felt like after this rip, I'd feel better. After this J, I'd feel better. Like just one more, I'll get. As soon as I feel, I'll be when I feel better. I mean, feel creative enough to sit down and work. Like I'd have to have the perfect dose of medicine, so to speak. And what I realized once I stopped doing that was I would put the same delays whether I was smoking or not. I would put the same delays for like I need another cup of coffee and then I'll feel ready. I need to sit outside and sort of take in the day a little bit, just, feel feel the sunlight a little bit before I start. All these things delay your progress. They delay when you start. They make it where now you have less time to work because you wasted time doing some other things. The truth is, life is out there and you'll have more time to spend living your life outside of the being creative part, which is working. Being creative and working for me are the same thing. If I am if I'm sitting down to be creative, to mix a song or to work on a song I started writing or to finish one or to finish, some production element of something I'm working on or to give lessons to help somebody mix their songs or whatever I'm doing, there's that's work, but it's also creative. And it's easy to think you need to have the perfect setup, the perfect mindset, the perfect to get ready to do that on a daily basis, especially if you're somebody who sits down to mix. It's like the pros who know they start at the same time every day and just sitting there, even if you are lost as far as what you will do. Like you don't have to know what you're going to do. A good example is, like, people who make content. Like, I started to make these videos about a year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that, about a year and a half. I started in the winter, about, like, November-ish, I believe, something like that, October, November, not this past one, but the one before. So, about a year and a half. As soon as I sat down to try to be creative, something would come to me that I wanted to talk about. But the longer I delayed and prolonged that sitting down, the longer it would just take for me to finish at the end of the night, so I'd lose out on life. That life that you wanna also put in like, that's what's gonna keep you motivated to keep working the next day, having some sort of a life out there also. That doesn't mean you can't ride the wave of creativity when you catch it and work as long as you want, but the trick is starting. So many of us would be so much more productive if we just put like a real line in the sand of this is where we start every day. This is the time we start. Whether we have ideas or don't, whether we feel like mixing or not, whether we feel like writing or not, or recording or not, or whatever it is we feel like that day, doesn't matter. We create discipline within ourselves if we just put ourselves in the chair in the studio to begin working at the same time. And what will happen is you will learn how to get more productive with your time because you're in that position. So don't allow yourself the distraction to like sit in that position and take a nap or look up, look at stupid shorts on the phone or something. Like don't do that. Put yourself in that position and just see what happens by even if you have to just go through the motions of something. Like for me, if I'm not up to mixing at that moment, I will set up the next song I wanna mix because that is very sort of mathematical in a way where the same processes have to happen to set up the song to mix, but it's not creative. So if I'm not feeling up to being creative, I'll do that. But at least that is also something on my list of things to get done. And that's the other thing. People like me, I don't like to write stuff down. I don't know about you. I don't like to make lists. And it's so funny how the things we fight are often the things we need the most. So I fight making lists, so I know I must make lists. Because when I make a list of what I have to do that day and I check off what I've done, you feel so much better at the end of the day. You know you accomplished what you set out to, which is what makes you feel better. So it's cause and effect there, but also you get to really see how much time you should be devoting to everything so that you could get done with what you have to get done that day and then still have some sort of a life. So every this goes hand in hand, all right? Now, it takes some people a long time to realize this. I didn't realize it early. It took me a lot of many years to realize the values of these things that doing the things I didn't want to do. Like making a list, like when I don't feel like being creative, making myself sit in the chair, do it anyway. Same start time every day. That gets you into this habit of even though your work may be creative, you're still working the same way someone would want to work who was trying to be as productive as they could in any business, in any facet of life. So just s- start thinking along those lines. And in my opinion, you will become much happier with yourself because the more you're proud of yourself, the easier it is to work the next day. And you become more proud of yourself just by getting things done. You don't need to see accolades. You don't need people cheering for you. You don't need people telling you how great everything you're doing is. You will tell yourself that, and that will mean more to you if you can make your keep your word to yourself. That's really what I'm trying to say. Keep your word to yourself by making a list of what you can realistically accomplish that day. And don't set your goals so ridiculously crazy, like you're going to work 12 hours every day. Sometimes I work 12 hours, but sometimes 5 hours is the max I can put in before I start getting a little nutty and I got to, take a break or do something else or, I lose focus. So it's not about really how long you spend. As long as you guarantee yourself you will spend 5 hours a day, you'll be surprised. Some days you'll go 12 because that's what happens in the creative world. We can't decide when the wave is going to come that we're going to catch and then have to ride because we feel like this is something here that we have to flush out. When that's the case, you do it. And when it's like pulling teeth because it's just not going well that day, you realize that that day you spent gets you closer to doing something more the next day. It gets you closer, if nothing else, to learning something you didn't know, which tomorrow will help you be better at whatever you're doing. Too often we look at the failures as permanent stopping points, or we look at that as a way to judge ourselves as far as what we are not good at or what we're not capable of or what we will never achieve. All of that fatalistic thinking is the opposite of what it means when you fail. When you fail, all it means is you've discovered one more way that doesn't work. And as soon as you can cross off the list enough ways that don't work and understand why they don't work, you'll never have to repeat those mistakes again. So they're very valuable points in the journey. Every time you make mistakes, every time you fail, every time something doesn't get where you want to get, but you make the list, you cross the stuff off as you go, and you make sure you keep your word to yourself by starting at the same time every day. That's really what it is. And finishing at the same time every day is very, very hard for people like us because, like I said, sometimes we're like hot on the trail of something, like a detective. We look at ourselves as what we have to do. In other words, like we're mixing, right? So now we're mixing, and if we get into something and we know we're close to figuring out whatever's the problem, how to clear the space out to get this to feel the way we want, and we just got to keep doing it until it's done. That's what makes it very hard for other people in our life to deal with us because we don't know when we're going to be done. So as a result, sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it's shorter. When the creative wave is there, we got to ride it out. When we're with anybody in the studio who's also being creative, we may have just tapped into the greatness the last hour of the work, and now we got to make that two more or we got to extend it as long as we can, as long as they're willing to do it. You never know when it's going to happen, but the last thing you want to do is have to stop because of life. So what I recommend is when you set your start time every day, make it early enough if you can, because some people don't work well in the day, during the day, like early, but make it as early as you can so that if things go beyond a typical amount of hours, whatever you set that for yourself, whatever that is, you'll still be able to have some sort of a life afterwards. The problem with starting late and ending late is that, like, super early in the morning when you start super late, the problem with that is the rest of life doesn't wait around for you and is probably on a more normal schedule, most likely. Unless everyone in your life is also this kind of creative person, it's likely that they go to bed a reasonable earlier time. They're eating their dinners at a reasonable time. So if you want to interact with other, human beings, you got to sort of put yourself in a position to when things do go late, you aren't working way past when anybody else is up or around. So I recommend doing your best to change your habits so you do start early enough to finish earlier. That's helpful too. So those are the tips, in my opinion, that are the best for getting on a pace that will make you happier with yourself and more productive. If you got others, let me know. Throw it in the comments. Evan Jaffe, Custom Cut Studios. You guys got this. Take it easy.